Hello there. We're back. Just sitting here waiting for them to come through that door. Hi, Anonymous. You know, I have the weirdest song streaming through my head right now. I always have songs streaming through my head. I don't quite understand why this particular song is in my head. It doesn't really match necessarily how I'm feeling right now, but it's Fell on Dark Days. Cause I fell on dark days. I don't know. It's just in my head. I'm not sure why. I fell on black day. How would I know? Fell on black days. Soundgarden. Yep. So thank you. I fell on black days. So I have a singing channel. I don't promote it very much because I sing for therapy. I'm an okay singer, but I do it really for therapy. And I do have that song uploaded on my therapy singing channel. Yeah, it's I love Soundgarden. I mean Chris Cornell, right? The singer. Incredible. That insanely talented, insane loss of talent. Yeah, absolutely. You saw him with Linkin Park? Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow. That must have been amazing. Because weren't they best friends? That's quite a story right there. Yeah, yeah. You could listen to him sing the phone book. I think Chris Cornell was a better singer than oh god, his name is slipping my mind. The Linkin Park guy. I'm so sorry. I sometimes names just escape my Swiss cheese brain. I'm so sorry. Chester. That's his name. Chris Cornell was a better singer, but they were both yeah, Chester Bennington, yeah. Yes, and I know it was on Chris's birthday when Chester did that, and it was Chris's birthday when he did himself too, right? Ah, God, Jesus. Oh, that's just tragic. And their songs really, the songs they wrote really reflected that inner world that they were suffering. And I think so many people can relate to that, can connect with that. And I think that's one of the reasons. I'm not seeking any sympathy here. A lot of people know that I have mental health issues. I think that's one of the reasons I connect with their music, you know. But I just personally happen to connect more with Chris Cornell's music across his various bands. Oh yeah, I have seen that, Anonymous. Yeah, I have seen that. Entire story of those two is heartbreaking. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. Both of I'm sure one of the reasons they connected with each other was because of their personal suffering, you know, the way they suffered, you know, personally, and I'm sure they connected on that level. and that's why they were so close. And gosh, it's making me want to cry right now. But don't be surprised about that. I cry very easily. Nothing to be worried about. I cry very easily. I'm a sappy gal. They both left a mark. One of my favorite songs is "In the End," that Chester wrote. I also uploaded that, and a friend of mine on Smule. I use Smule, the singing app, to sing on, because you can use the regular music there. And one of my duet partners that I sing on Smule with did the rap part, because I have no flow, let me tell you. But he did the rap part, and it's pretty good. It's called Lynn's Therapy Singing Channel Anonymous. Very original. That channel has been through a different iterations. I don't know if you have seen out as Insomnia and True Crime. And then for a short while, I changed it to Save Your Drama for Your Mama. And I was going to try to go live there and just do silly lives. But I learned pretty quickly that I don't know. When you go live on YouTube, you really need to have at least for me to go live and enjoy it on YouTube, you really need to have a focus and a topic and have something to talk about. And I didn't really have a good focus on that channel. So I just changed it and I was already uploading music and singing on that channel anyway. So I just started uploading my singing. It just dedicated it to my singing videos. But there's a smattering of drama videos on that channel if you really go digging deep. Thank you, Anonymous. There's a smattering of drama videos on that channel, but they're not super important. They're really old. They're super old. Sometimes the songs I sing on that channel are a reaction to drama that I'm two times I've been targeted in drama. But not all the time. Most of the time it's just me singing for my own therapy and, singing in general about the cacophony of issues in life. And one thing you could say about me is that I do have a lot of depth. I think a lot. And that's where you can see it play out. That's basically my journal, kind of like if I had a journal online, that would be it, my singing channel. Hello, Ms. Milky the Clown. As people come in, please remember to hit the thumbs up. Thank you very much. This court isn't running on time very well. They were more on time with Jennifer CRUMBLEY's trial. So far since I've started covering trials on this channel, I think that the judge in the Adam Montgomery case has my vote for most on time, most punctual. This one, I think, they do run into issues when they have a prisoner to transport, and they keep having to transport James or Jennifer, up from the jail and put the chains on and blah, 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 blah. In the Adam Montgomery trial, he kept refusing transport. He didn't show up to his own damn trial. Adam Montgomery walked in looking like he was going to own the room for the whole trial. And that was during jury selection. And then for the rest of the trial, he didn't even show the F up. The coward. So we see movement back there. And you know, for the record, that's why I sometimes schedule these lives, even though they say, okay, we're going to be back here at, 1:30 our time. I'll schedule my live to start at 1:40 their time, and they're still late. But I come on to talk to you all and visit a little bit until they get going. So one thing I was interested in watching earlier, but I didn't get to catch it because I had to do a little bit of housework here, is Karen Reed. I don't know if any of you are following the Karen Reed case, but Karen Reed is a woman in Massachusetts who is being accused of killing her boyfriend, who was a cop there. And the case, the case in and of itself isn't super remarkable. The cop died one night in front of their friend's house, and the state is contending that, or actually it's the Commonwealth is contending that Karen Reed backed into him one drunken night when she was leaving a party, and here they're finally coming in. But there's like a cult of people driven by an online personality called Turtle Boy, who insists that there is a massive police cover-up involving all of her boyfriend's buddies, and that she is completely innocent. And because her boyfriend was a cop. So all of her hearings generate a lot of interest. And also her representative, this guy Turtle Boy, has gotten into trouble himself in relation to the case because he's been harassing witnesses. And there was a hearing today in Karen Reed's case because they were trying to get it dismissed. They're trying to get the case against her dismissed, and I'm interested in seeing how that went, but I didn't get to check it out yet. So I'm curious if any of you have followed that case at all, the Karen Reed case.
All right.
Hey, Mom.
Your Honor, calling People versus James Crumblery, case number 22279-989-FH.
Thank you, Marquise, on behalf of the people.
Karen McDonald on behalf of the people. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Marielle Lehman on behalf of James Crumblery, who is standing to my left. Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Williams, would you mind?
Who's next, please?
William Creer.
He was interviewed recently on by Vinnie Politan on Court TV Anonymous. Yep, Janice Smith. It's a weird one because Janice, it's not that remarkable of a case, but Turtle Boy fans have turned it into this like circus. That's what's so weird about it, you know?
Maybe see that. Who's next with this?
William Creer.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give the truth to help you out?
Yes, ma'am.
Please be seated, and then would you state your name for the record, spell your first and last name?
Record, my name is William Creer. First name's common spelling. Last name is spelled Creer.
Go ahead, Pastor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Creer, I just want to acknowledge that you just came from a very long shift, so you're a little tired. So we're not going to keep you on the stand very long. Can you tell the jury what your job is?
No problem. I'm a forensic technician for the Detroit Police Department. We commonly call it a crime scene investigator. My job is to go to the crime scenes, take pictures, collect evidence, and generate a report and testify in court like I'm testifying now.
Okay, so as your job as a crime scene, would you say investigator?
That's fine.
Okay, it's important to distinguish, are you a member actually of law enforcement?
I work for law enforcement, yes.
All right, are you considered a police officer?
No, I'm not.
All right, is that then, would you consider yourself a civilian?
Yes.
All right. How long have you worked as a crime scene investigator?
20 years.
And all of those years have you worked for the Detroit Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to draw your attention to December 4th of 2021. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
And are you on shifts or are you on call? How does that work?
We're on shifts. My shift I currently work on is from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And are you at home during this time or call when necessary, or are you actually in an office?
I'm in the office.
Okay. On December 4th, were you dispatched that day, if you know, to an address of 1111 Bellevue in Detroit?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Do you know about what time you received that dispatch?
I believe around 2 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware if there was a search warrant that was being executed?
The request we got over radio was there was a search warrant executed at that location.
And what were your initial thoughts when you were dispatched to the location about what your purpose there was?
All we knew at the time was a search warrant at the location. We really didn't know anything else about it previously until we pulled up.
All right. And when you pulled up, what was your observation?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
When he pulled up to the scene, overall,
Thank you.
A lot of news cameras around, so we were like, okay, this is interesting.
In addition to the news cameras, though, what was the scene like in terms of, was law enforcement already on scene? Did you know what had happened in that scene?
At that time, we didn't still exactly have any of the real details. All we knew at the time was it was a search warrant. We were there to collect evidence regarding the search warrant. And when we pulled up, there was, of course, like you mentioned before, news cameras all around and heavy police presence.
All right, and then what happened?
Then when we reached the scene, we talked to an officer in charge, and then that's when we were notified what this case was actually involved with.
And what were you told?
That the case was involving
Can
crime.
you just raise your voice just a little bit, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was trying to.
I knew you could speak louder.
No problem. Case was involving the shooting incident, and this was the location that search warrant was being authorized, and 2 people were arrested.
Is that all you were told?
Yes.
Okay. And were you directed to a certain part of the building?
Suite 130 of the location you mentioned.
Were you by yourself or was someone else?
I had a partner.
And who's that?
My partner is Stephanie Sparks.
Do you normally process the scene by yourself or with another partner?
Midnight, you process things with partners.
Okay. And once you arrived at the suite, were you and your partner the only one there? Were you the only ones there, or who else was there?
The scene was secured by the police, by the church police.
What does that mean, secure?
Means that that is secured so that way there's no outside interference coming inside the building, no one tampering with evidence, and everything is there as it was when the search warrant was executed.
And is that a typical thing and that you encounter in your job? That do you arrive to scenes once it's cleared and secured, or are you sometimes there at the same time? A lot's going on.
Oh no, we're there after the scene is secured.
Okay. So what is your job when you arrive on the scene that day?
When I arrive at the scene, we talk to the officer in charge of the scene. We then walk through the scene. He points out items of interest.
Remember, keep your voice up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He points out items of interest that you might want collected. My partner and I would then walk through the scene. We'll also pay attention to see what's around. We then would suggest additional items, if any, to collect, and allow us to look around a little bit more. And then after that, we take pictures, collect evidence, and package the evidence, turn it in.
All right, Mr. Kerr, is there a difference between collecting evidence and searching?
Yes,
And are you assigned to do both?
it depends on the situation. Yeah, in this situation, we collected the evidence. The search warrant was already executed, and we looked around additionally.
All right, and what makes you start searching other places?
The fact that we looked around and we said, yeah, the OIC, I can't remember the name at the time, gave us permission to look around a little bit more.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 306, 307, 309 through 320, 322 to 358. I believe these have all been admitted. Mr. Pierre, what is that?
That's the scene location.
All right. And,
Again, it's the north side of the scene location.
okay.
Again, we're at the north side of the scene location.
All right. Can you see the windows on the suite that you searched?
I believe the windows on the scene that we searched, because of the actual suite 130 is located on the northeast side of the building. So I would say the two windows closest to the left side of the screen.
Okay. And then, do you know what this is?
Yes, that was the vehicle we were directed to at the crime scene.
Oh,
Yes,
you
sir.
also searched the vehicle?
No, we didn't search the vehicle.
Okay.
We took pictures of the vehicle.
Okay, got it. What did you learn about the car? Anything? Did you take pictures of anything around the car, in the car?
We took pictures around the car, and then also around the car there were cigarette butts we collected.
You collected the cigarette butts?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is this a picture of?
Those are pictures of the cigarette butts.
All right, do you remember how many were there?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Did you bring a report with you today?
I did bring
Would that refresh your recollection?
It would.
All right, you have a look at it and just let me know when you are ready to answer that question.
Collected a total of 14 cigarette butts.
Okay. Anything else around the car? Is that a picture? What are we looking at?
The picture is behind the vehicle and more cigarette butts.
And you collected those?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and 312 and then 313. What is that?
That's suite 130.
Okay. Is that where you searched?
Yes.
All right, and is that typical? You just take pictures of, what do you take pictures of as a matter of protocol?
No problem. We take pictures of the area. In this particular situation, that's the actual room number. So of course we took pictures of the front door and room number. As we enter through, we'll take pictures of the see if there's any damage to the door, if any, if the door was breached, if it wasn't breached, if there was any damage at all.
Was there any damage to this door?
None observed.
Okay, and the next slide is 314. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the actual scene inside of the scene location 130.
Okay. And then 315, is that also from a different angle?
Yes, as we enter the room, that would be to the north.
And those windows that we see, do you know where they face?
They are also facing north.
Would those be the windows you just pointed out in the previous slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is another angle,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And what is this?
This is directly in front of the door, so that would be to the east side of the door.
Did you observe a mattress in this building, in this room?
There was a mattress at all.
Do you see it in this picture?
You kind of see it towards the bottom of the screen. Yeah, right there.
Okay. And the next slide,
To the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you see the mattress with the drawers on top of it.
oh, that's the mattress?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And then I'm just gonna show you some slides, pictures of the scene, and you can just describe what angle it is and what you, if you see anything of significance to point out to the jury.
Yeah.
Okay,
Again, you see the mattress, you see the drawers. You also see going just to the right of the mattress.
remember
towards
to
the
keep your
edge of the
voice
screen.
up a little bit.
Sorry,
Mhm.
to the right of the mattress towards the edge of the screen, you see a table with 2 solo cups.
Right there,
Yes.
okay. What is this?
Again, we're right at the mattress. At the, I guess that would be the left side of the mattress, you have some clothes and a baseball cap.
Okay, and the next slide. What's significant about this, if anything?
You got the mattress in the bottom right hand of the picture. Towards the left hand of the picture, right in front of the little shelving units on the floor, you got a Snipes clothing bag.
All right. And at some point, did you remove the items in the bag?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the picture of those items?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury what we found?
You see in the picture a few pairs of socks, receipt, sweatshirt.
And are the socks, do they appear to be worn or new?
Those are brand new.
All right, do I see a receipt in that picture?
Yes, you do.
Okay, we're gonna get to that in just a second. The next slide, what are we looking at?
You're looking just, that's the mattress to our right, and to the left, there's some shelving units, but right in the middle, there's a sweater.
Okay, just for context, when you say right or left, when you're looking at this picture, where's the door?
Got you. The door would be to the west of the mattress.
So to the top right of the,
It'll be just to the, on the right side of the screen, towards the right border of the screen.
okay. And is that the article of clothing we just saw in the previous
Yes, ma'am.
slide? Okay, what is it?
It's a sweater, as I mentioned before.
All right, do you know if it's male or female?
Looks like a female sweater.
Okay, and the next slide, where did this come from?
Right now, if I remember correctly, this is going to be towards the east side of the room, and that's just a regular shirt. And you see further on a few pairs of other articles of clothing.
Okay. The next slide is, where is this in relation to the room?
In relation to the room, you see through previous slides, there was a table. The table would be along the south
Is the
side.
table right next to the mattress with the solo cups?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
This area is behind the table, and that's a pink book bag. It's was in a plastic tote container.
was the tote, did it have a lid on it, or was it without a lid?
It was without the lid when it arrived.
With or without?
Without.
Okay. Do you know, did anybody take the lid off, or was it found like that when the individuals were arrested?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation, I don't know how he would know that.
I started out with, do you know?
No,
Do you know?
I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. And was there anything else in this container other than the backpack?
I'd have to go further through the pictures.
Okay. What is this?
That's the table that is right in front of the tote with the book bag.
Okay, and can you tell the jury what was on this table?
You have foodstuffs like bananas, orange juice, a fertilizer bottle, a Coca-Cola bottle, solo cups.
All right. And the next slide.
Next side, we're right back at the tote with the book bag.
All right. And what's this?
This is the part where we're getting ready to go through the tote, through the book bag that we just pulled out of the tote.
And what do you see? I'm sorry, what did you find in the backpack?
Okay, to the left of the book bag, towards the top of the screen, you have a smaller little bag, and you also, as we're gonna progress through the pictures, you're gonna see various articles of clothing. as well.
Okay. Next slide.
Again, we're going through, progressing through the pictures. You have various articles of clothing, and we still have that little smaller bag right there on top of the book bag.
Was there anything in that bag?
I have to look at my report to refresh my memory.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't believe that's the very first. Could we have the rest of the pictures?
Sure, sure. What's to the left on there?
To the left, you have a pair of black jeans.
Do you know if they're male or female?
I believe they're female.
And the next slide is 332. What is that a picture of?
Another picture, it's another picture of the black jeans.
Okay. And the slide after that?
You see the brand of the jeans. You see their high-rise skinny stretch jeans, and you can see the size on the tag. If you zoom in,
Hey, Harlot.
All right.
that's size 12.
Okay. And the next slide?
Uh,
Where were these articles found?
Those articles were inside the pink book bag.
Okay, and can you tell the jury what is in that picture?
And inside the picture, you have you see a syringe. I'd have to go through my notes to recall what was actually inside the syringe. You also have some pills just at the bottom of the screen, and then on the inside the bag, you also see a bank envelope.
A what?
Rent.
A bank envelope.
A bank envelope, okay. Do you know what the pills were for, or what they were?
Not off the top of my head.
Is it in your report?
Let me look at my report.
Okay, yes.
Were either of them diabetic?
And while you're doing that, would it refresh your recollection about the syringe?
Yes, because
Okay.
I would call that definitely a medical.
Okay.
I mean, I'm always given the benefit of the doubt, so I'm going to assume one of them was diabetic, but and is that a black bra sitting there? It's a nice black bra.
Okay, the syringe was the Exceed. It's the prescription for medication for a horse.
Okay,
Oh,
That's
for
the syringe that you see in the picture inside the bag. And I don't have a description of the pills.
okay, in the next slide, do you see a better description of the back of the pills there?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, I believe they're like caffeine pills or something like that.
Vivarin?
Yes.
All right, in the next slide,
ooh,
that's what you just talked about.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right,
caffeine.
what is this?
Those are articles of clothing I described earlier.
And can you list those?
They are female intimate garments, underwear and bras.
And do you know how many pair of underwear?
Now, off the top of my head.
Okay. In the next slide, what is that?
That is the hotel room key. It was inside a black jacket, and that was along the northeast corner of the room.
Okay. And the next slide is 339. What is this?
It's a picture of a whiskey container. It's in a garbage can.
All right.
Yeah, you can't get Vivarin.
And the next slide, what is this receipt for?
It's from the River Town Market. We found the receipt on the table. As you see on the, as we go through the pictures, you have the various items that are on the receipt. I believe the next picture also has the date on the receipt as well.
What is this?
That is going to be a plastic tote with an avocado inside the tote.
Okay. And I remember last time you testified, you weren't sure what that was.
Exactly.
You've since learned it was an avocado.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What else is in that picture with the avocado?
It's a aluminum container, similar to what you would use for like Maybe
Lasagna?
Lasagna.
Okay, and what's inside of it?
Melting ice, in an ice bag.
So was it completely melted or was it still cold?
At the time, it was completely melted. Yeah, at the time, it was completely melted.
Was it still cold?
No.
Okay. The next slide. What is this?
It's a receipt.
Is it the receipt that we just talked about at Rivertown?
I would have to look at the picture before, because you see at the top, the receipt has 14, and on the previous picture, yes, that's the bottom of the receipt.
Okay. And what's the date on that?
The date on the receipt is 12/3/2021.
And at the time you are searching this, is it December 3rd or December 4th?
It will be December 4th,
Okay. And the actual time of the purchase?
4:09 p.m.
Okay. The next slide is, what is it?
Yeah, this picture of the mattress we talked about earlier.
Okay. The next slide is 344. Tell the jury what this is and why you took a picture of it.
This is a picture of the totes that will be around the east side of the room. The reason why we took pictures of the totes is because we saw the one tote that was already open before. These totes look kind of funny, or kind of just look like they kind of was messed with or jostled with at the time. So we decided to take pictures of it.
Okay, and just so that the jury understands, I want to go back to slide 14. You have that number? It's to show there. Maybe this one. Starting. Okay, so do I have this right? There were 2 separate plastic totes that you discovered items in?
Yes.
Okay, and were they found in the same place?
No.
All right, you testified earlier that the tote with the pink backpack, where did you find that?
The tote with the pink backpack, if you go through the picture, you see the table just to the left side of the screen in that corner. That's where the one tote with pink book bag is located.
So how far away from the mattress?
It's the mattress, table, and the tote.
Okay, so a foot, 2 feet?
About a foot.
Okay.
About a foot, yes.
Okay, and then you said you searched and discovered more items in a different tote.
Yes.
And
Those,
where was that?
towards the top of the screen, you have the yellow scaffolding, whatever, holding the totes. Then behind that area, behind the table right there would be the next area of totes.
Okay, so is it on that scaffolding you found it?
Right behind it.
Right
Right
behind,
behind the table.
right behind there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so was that visible when you walked into the room?
No, as you walk into the room, you look around, you know, during the search of the area.
Okay, so that tote that was found on the other side of the room, what was discovered, if anything, in that tote?
In that tote, that's where we found the purse with the money, as we go through.
Okay, one moment. Okay, was the tote found in that condition? And I guess what I'm asking is, was there a lid on it?
You see the lid on it. As we take pictures, you see it as we progress.
Okay, next slide. What is that?
Again, you see the tote being moved over a little bit, you see the purse.
Okay. What is this?
Yes, now we're looking inside the purse.
All right. And then the pictures, is this how you do it? You take a picture of the first item and then all of the things that you take out of it?
Yes, ma'am, we take the regression.
Okay. Sorry, you told me that. All right, next slide. What is this?
You see the bank envelopes, you see a search warrant under the bank envelopes, and you see the 2 bank envelopes as well on top of it.
A search warrant, what is that?
As you see at the top of the screen is the warrant and tabulation return.
Okay. And that was found in the bag or in the tote?
The bank envelopes were found in the purse. The search warrants were just on the table.
Okay. And then the next slide, what is that?
You're again looking inside the purse and you see cash right in a smaller pocket of the purse.
Was there anything in the bank envelopes?
Yes, there's money in the bank envelopes as well.
All right. And you see cash in this picture. Is this stuff in addition to what you found in the bank envelopes?
Yes.
Okay. And if you remember, and if not, you can look at your notes. How much total, what was the total amount of cash found in that handbag?
I'd have to look at the notes. I know it was around $6,000.
Do you want to just correct?
Yes,
Make sure you're
please.
correct.
$6,617.
Okay. And those are, we'll get to it. I'm not going to do that again. Okay, next slide. That's just a close-up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. The slide after this. This is exhibit 350, and there's kind of a lot going on in this picture. Can you explain to the jury what you see?
No problem. In the picture, you see 4 cell phones. One of the cell phones appears to be busted and broken. Those are the condition of the cell phones. Those are the condition when collected cell phones. You also see the keys just to the left of the cell phones. They were collected. They were turned over to the unit at the scene so they can collect and move the card. You also see a bank card and some prescription medication just to the top of it, just to the top and left of the bank card.
Okay, the next slide.
That's a closer picture of the keys.
And the bank card, is that a traditional bank card, if you know?
No.
Okay. The next slide.
You have a closer picture of the medication I mentioned before.
And do you know what these medications were?
No. I see Adderall and 2 other containers.
Okay, and do you know who they're prescribed to?
You see Jennifer Crumbleigh on all 3. Well, you
Adderall.
see it that are on the bottle to the right. And the other 2 bottles, you can kind of see Jennifer and Crumbleigh.
So
All right,
she's
and
taking
the next one.
Adderall and that.
Again, it's pictures of 4
Ivory.
cell phones.
Were any of these cell phones powered on?
No,
How do you know that?
because if they were, we would take pictures of the items in condition that you collect.
They were all off.
Exactly.
And then the next picture? What is this?
It's pictures of the money we collected from the purse.
So you actually lay out each bill?
Yes.
Okay. And the next photo,
More pictures of the money.
and the 2 after that?
Yep.
All right, and then the last photo here is there was a receipt. Can you tell the jury what the time and date is on this receipt?
12/3/2021.
And what are the items listed?
Giant lasagna pan, Werner's 2-liter bottle, paper towel, Kleenex.
Thank you.
Giant lasagna pan is random. But I find it
At what
crazy that
time do you
Adderall.
estimate that the search was completed?
I have to look at my notes, definitely get the time.
Okay. For the sake of time, does it around 5 a.m. sound
Yeah,
right
around
to you?
5 a.m.
Okay, and then when you were done, what did you do? What-
We were directed to take pictures of the prisoners.
And is that a normal thing in your job?
If we were directed to, yes.
Okay, so where were these individuals located?
Oakland County Jail.
So did you drive straight to the jail?
When we were directed to, yes.
Okay, as soon as you finished the search?
Yes.
And the preparation? Okay, and when you arrived at the Oakland County Jail, what did you do?
We took pictures of both the Crumbleys individually. First, we took pictures of Miss Crumbly first, and then Mr. Crumbly.
Okay. And what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of it was the fact that it showed any injuries that there are any, and the condition when they were arrested.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me further.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of your response.
If there are any injuries or their condition when they were arrested.
Thank you.
I wonder why they don't show those
Yes, Your
photos.
Honor. Briefly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As a forensic technician, your role is to document what you see at a scene, correct?
Yes, ma'am?
Your role is not to investigate what may have occurred prior to your arrival.
No, ma'am.
You testified that when you arrived at 1111 Bellevue, that there were a lot of news cameras.
Yes,
There were a lot of law enforcement, if you recall.
yes.
It was kind of a chaotic scene.
I wouldn't say chaotic, but it was officers and cameras at the scene.
You were told that you were notified, you were not notified what the case was involving before arriving at 1111 Bellevue. Is that correct?
Exactly.
You were only told that it was a shooting incident.
We were told that we were collecting for a search warrant.
For a shooting incident.
We were told we were collecting for a search warrant.
Okay, so you weren't told anything.
Again, as my report says on the first page, as you look at the first line, the information received, received a request to process the scene of a search warrant and arrest at the address 1111 Bellevue from District 1 Dispatch.
And I thought that in your direct testimony with the prosecutor that you said that you were notified that the case was involving a shooting incident and that 2 people were arrested.
Your Honor, I just
that-
wanted just to clear up, I'm not sure at the time of when he was notified, at the scene versus before he left. So I just want clarification.
Do you recall testifying in that way?
No, what I said, if we're talking about this specific time, was when we were informed from District 1 it was search warrant. When we arrived, that's when we understood it was connected to the shooting incident.
So after you arrived at 1111 Bellevue?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. You said that when you initially get to a scene, you walk through and the officer in charge points out items of interest that he or she wants collected.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you may also walk through with your partner and identify additional things.
Yes, ma'am.
And we saw some of those things today, like the tote that you ended up taking photos of where the purse was. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct? You testified that you collected 14 cigarette butts. And you can look at your report if you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll stipulate he said 14.
Yeah, 14.
He hasn't slept.
And it's your understanding that, from your recollection, those cigarette butts were collected next to a Kia that we had a photograph of.
Yes, ma'am.
You testified that inside of the plastic bag, in exhibit, well, I believe it was exhibit 334, that there was a bank envelope. Looking at the bag now, do you see what that was?
The picture's kind of blurry, but it still looks like a bank envelope.
Okay, it doesn't look like a business card?
To me, it looks like a bank envelope with the black spots on top of it.
Exhibit 339, the prosecutor asked you to look at the inside of a garbage can, if you recall, and there was a whiskey bottle inside the garbage can.
Yes.
You don't know how that whiskey bottle got there?
No.
You have no knowledge of how long it had been there?
No.
You have no information about it whatsoever?
No, all I know is a whiskey bottle garbage can.
And you were just taking a photograph of what was on the scene when you got there?
Yes, ma'am.
In exhibit 347, you talked about bank envelopes and a search warrant tabulation return, which was on a table.
Yes.
It wasn't hidden anywhere, correct?
The
The-
search warrant or
The tabulation was not hidden anywhere. It was just sitting on a table when you took the photograph?
Yes.
And you completed the search that you arrived on scene around 2 a.m. and you were done around 5 a.m.?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
And the photographs that you took photographs of cash. You don't know what that cash was for. That's fair. Because again, you were just taking photographs of what was on the scene when you got there.
There's cash in the purse for that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Just one point for clarification. You said you took pictures for, in case there were document any injuries. Did you?
Objection, Your Honor. I didn't ask anything about those photographs.
She did.
I believe that she did. And if not, I'm offering some clarification.
Your Honor, I would object to any questions about the photographs that were taken of my client after he was arrested. I didn't ask anything about that on my cross.
Yeah, I did see the scope of crossing.
Okay. Is this witness excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
That seems fair. She didn't ask any questions
Tim Willis.
about that. Yay, sparkle.
Could you raise your hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is the true self of God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you
Like
step
more
up,
law
please?
enforcement.
And then state your name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Timothy Willis, TIMOTHY WILLIS.
I remember him from the last
May I proceed, Judge?
trial.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. How are you employed?
Detective Lieutenant with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
Approaching 28 years.
Okay. You said you're a detective lieutenant right now?
Yes.
Tell us please what that means.
I oversee a handful of divisions within the sheriff's office, the special investigations unit, which I know we've mentioned at court, the fugitive apprehension team, our computer crimes, which Detective Wodrowski had worked for, and our warrants division.
Okay. And we'll get into some of that in a little more detail. Is it fair to say that you're the officer in charge of this case, or one of the officers in charge?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Just to clear something up quickly, when James Crumbley was arrested on December the 4th, 2021, did he have any injuries?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Now, going back to your role as detective lieutenant, we've talked a little bit about the special investigative unit. Can we talk a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us please, what sort of cases would a member of the special investigative unit handle?
Yeah, so the Special Investigations Unit is a support services arm of the Sheriff's Office. So we take a lot of requests from other agencies, from our own substations. Oftentimes we handle political cases, complex cases, high-profile cases, things of that nature.
Okay, and prior to your current role, what other roles did you have with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, prior to my role as the detective lieutenant, special investigations, I was also the detective lieutenant in charge of our auto theft unit, our friend of the court division, our arson division.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to November the 30th, 2020.
Friend of the court.
Okay,
Do you remember that day?
I do.
Were you notified of an active shooter situation at Oxford High School that afternoon?
Yes,
Can you tell us, please, where you were when you were made aware of that?
I was actually at the prosecutor's office at the time. I was made aware discussing another matter. The prosecutor and her chief assistant came in and advised me that there had been a shooting at the Oxford High School.
So what did you do with that? What did you do next?
For context, about, I don't know, a couple months before that, we had a false alarm, if you will, at another school. So initially, that was immediately what I went to, was this is probably another false alarm, but I picked up my phone and I made a phone call. I've thought about it a million times. I have no idea who I called, but I do remember the response was, this is a real thing, this is real.
Okay. So tell us what you did, please.
I obviously, ran downstairs or took the elevator downstairs, ran to my vehicle, and immediately proceeded to the Oxford High School with my lights and sirens activated.
Okay. Do you recall the approximate time you would have arrived at Oxford High School?
I think it around 1:20 in the afternoon, approximately.
Okay. Tell us what you saw as you arrived on scene.
There was the largest emergency first response that I've ever seen in my career, and second place isn't even close. When I got there, there were students were being evacuated, and more and more officers were rushing in. EMS was on scene. I vaguely recall our helicopter flying above. It was just a something I'd only seen on TV before, nothing I've ever experienced.
Okay. So at that point in time when you arrived, was the scene still active?
It was, yes.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's 9. Is that screen in front of you working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is a map of the Oxford High School?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as you pull up on scene, you made those observations. Tell us where you went next.
Just understand, there's a lot of the day that I don't recall very well, so I don't remember where I parked. But I do remember going through the front office entrance
That's in
area. It would be, you see office 200, that door right there. Yeah,
This door right
yeah.
here?
I do remember going through there. It was being held open by officers. And that's where I met then Lieutenant Todd Hill, who was the incident commander.
Okay. What's an incident commander?
So Lieutenant Hill had assumed incident command because, as you can imagine, I explained to you, there was so much disorganization in the early, I mean, we had no idea what we were responding to. My police radio was blowing up with calls of, we think there's an additional shooter here. We think someone's fleeing from the scene here. I mean, it was chaos. So Lieutenant Hill assumed that role and started organizing resources for the sweeps of the school, for any secondary explosive devices or any additional shooters, to identify victims, things of that nature. So that was going on as I had arrived at the school.
Okay. So we've identified you as, you've identified yourself as the officer in charge of the investigation.
That's correct.
That's different than incident commander though?
Yes, the incident commander's role, I mean, especially in a case like this, because of the hundreds of emergency first responders that were flooding into the school, Lieutenant Hill, he's a captain now, so if I use him interchangeably, but Lieutenant Hill at the time handled the securing of the building, and evacuating wounded, injured, and because of my role in the Special Investigations Unit, the fact is that I was in charge of the Special Investigation Unit at the time, I assumed the role of the investigative lead, which is often referred to as the officer in charge.
Okay, if you could please give us a little bit of an idea of what an officer in charge typically does in a case.
So an officer in charge of an investigation typically, at its most basic, we investigate the scene, meaning we determine what property needs to be, or what evidence needs to be collected, what witnesses need to be identified and spoken to, identifying potential victims, things of that nature. We also work with the prosecutor's office to determine charging, whatever charges, if any, that are going to come from the incident.
Okay. Now, would it be fair to say that in this particular case, there's a massive amount of information that was reviewed?
Yeah, so one of the more problematic things about this case is the amount of information that was coming in. If you can imagine social media tips and emails and everything like that, 911 calls coming in. It was just, it was information overload, and all the best we could do was, just try to process things as they came.
Now, so it would be fair to say that you've reviewed the evidence in this case, at least in a supervisory role.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm going to start off with your testimony where we left off the last few witnesses, and I'll go through the exhibits that have been admitted already. This is exhibit 361. So a little bit of background here, sir. Were you made aware that the defendant, James CRUMBLEY, and his wife, Jennifer CRUMBLEY's phones were seized the evening of November 3rd?
Yes, as part of the, if I can back up just a second.
Sure.
So as the OIC, there was a point in time where I advised, and it was just announced basically, that if you're an investigator, come see me, because I knew there were so many things jobs that needed to be done. So a handful of investigators were sent to different hospitals, area hospitals, whether we knew that there were victims there or not. We had some reason to believe that there were victims being shipped everywhere. Lieutenant Marsban was handling, once that the shooter was identified, handling the scene at the shooter's address. Special Agent Brandon had come up to assist me in identifying the murder weapon. So there was just, and I actually had a scribe next to me just jotting down as fast as she could when I would make an assignment, who was doing it and what the assignment was, because it was just, it was a ton of information.
So I think we'll back it up a little bit further.
Okay.
Now you're aware of when James CRUMBLEY was charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Yes.
Okay, when was that?
He was charged with involuntary manslaughter. I believe it was around noon on December 3rd.
Okay, so the shooting was Tuesday, November 30th, and there's Wednesday, December 1st, Thursday the 2nd, and Friday the 5th.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, tell us, sir, what happens when someone is charged with a felony?
So when the prosecutor authorizes a charge, gives it to the officer in charge, I take it before a judge and I swear to the facts of the case. It's called a swear to. And then the judge determines whether or not the information held within that complaint and warrant is sufficient to support a charge.
Okay, is that public or is that done in private?
That's all public.
And did you do that in this particular case?
I did.
Okay, you personally.
I did.
And was there also swear to of the defendant's son?
Yes,
Okay, that would have been Wednesday, December the 1st, 2021?
that is correct.
Okay, was that likewise public?
Yes, it was.
And when I say public, I mean open to the public.
There was, yes, open to the public and media present.
Okay. Was James Crumbley there for that, for his son's swear to?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Judge, the jury's going to get an instruction regarding 4.4. A lot of the evidence is regarding the timeline of where they were from November the 30th to December the 4th in the early morning.
I think where they were and the knowledge they had is relevant, so I'm not allowed.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, Wednesday, December the 1st, there was a swear to of the defendant's son?
That's correct.
Okay, and was James Crumbley there for that?
He was not in person, no.
Okay. And he was on Zoom?
He was on a Zoom from his, what appeared to be his vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've already heard from Dave Hendrick, who was, at the time, the sergeant in charge of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Apprehension Team. Part of your role as detective lieutenant, would that be supervising the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
Yes,
Okay. So did you assign him with his task of locating James and Jennifer Crumbley on Thursday, December the 2nd?
I did.
Okay, and tell me about that, please.
So, as I stated earlier, the officer in charge of cases presents information basically to make it clear to a prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney, in discussions with the officer in charge, determines what, if any, charges are going to come from it. We, at the time the shooter was charged, volumes of information was going into the prosecutor's office, and there was discussions on December 2nd about the possibility of charging the shooter's parents with involuntary manslaughter.
Okay, is that why you made that call to Sergeant Hendrick, or retired Sergeant Hendrick?
Yeah, what we knew at the time, the only thing that I knew at the time, and again, there's a lot of irons in the fire. The only thing I knew at the time is they weren't at their residence. They weren't actively staying at their residence. So I thought it was important that we try to locate them.
Okay. So now going back to Exhibit 361 on the screen here, you had mentioned that you had assigned Lieutenant Marsban with a search warrant of the defendant's home at 112 East in Oxford.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so that occurred on Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you made aware that their phones were seized as part of that search warrant?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And all right. We talked a little bit about track phone or burner phone, how they're referred to interchangeably. Were you made aware, did you learn that the defendant and his wife purchased those phones?
I was,
Okay.
yes.
And so what's in Exhibit 361?
So this is a receipt from the Walmart in Lapeer, Michigan, and for the purchase of the track phones.
Okay, so just for a timeline, this is at November 30th, 21 at 8:01 p.m.?
That's correct.
Okay. This is Exhibit 362. What are we looking at here?
This is a receipt for the Holiday Inn Express. So the shooting was on the 30th. They checked in on the 30th and they departed on the next day.
Okay. And do you recall where this Holiday Inn Express was located?
Yes, that's the Holiday Express in Lapeer.
There was also a search warrant executed at their house
No,
on the
they checked
30th.
out on Wednesday, December the 1st. Did you learn where they stayed that day, that evening?
I did.
Okay, this is Exhibit 365. What is this?
Yes, this is the receipt for the extended stay, check-in date for in Auburn Hills. The check-in date is December 1st and the checkout date was December 3rd.
So December 1st is the Wednesday, the 3rd is the Friday. Is this the location, we heard from retired Sergeant Hendrick about a vehicle being abandoned. Is this the location he's referring to?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm gonna show you what's, it is 366. What do we have here?
This is the vehicle we come to learn to be the defendant's vehicle.
You said they checked out on Friday, December the 3rd.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us, please, the relative location from this particular hotel to the closest police department.
The Auburn Hills Police Department from that location is basically across the street. It's not far.
Now, regarding Exhibit 361, just so we're clear, it's your understanding that they were actually told to purchase these phones, is that correct?
That is correct. So Detective Sergeant Brian, who testified earlier, he had advised them, or maybe it was Lieutenant Marsban, I can't recall, but said, hey, look, we're taking your phones. At this point, it's evidence, and which is common. And then we often advise them, so you have a means of communication, because people don't typically have house phones anymore. We just automatically tell them usually to just pick up a couple of track phones.
Okay. And were they permitted to obtain contact information from their phones before they were seized?
Yes, they were.
Now, specifically on Thursday, December the 2nd, 2021, did you or members of your team uncover evidence that James or Jennifer Crumbleigh obtained cash through withdrawals?
That's correct.
Okay, this is Exhibit 367. What are we looking at here?
This is a withdrawal from Flagstar on December 2nd for the amount of $2,000.
Now, Mr. Rogowski, who testified about the burner phones, also mentioned replacement phones, so new phones with the old numbers ported to them. Did you learn when James and Jennifer Crumbleigh purchased those?
I did.
This is Exhibit 368. What are we looking at here?
This is a T-Mobile in Owasso, Michigan, and this is the receipt on December 2nd at 11 a.m., 11:17 a.m. And this is where they purchased new phones with their original phone numbers on them.
Okay, so this is Thursday, December 2nd. At this point, they were staying at that hotel in Auburn Hills next to the police station, and this was purchased in Owasso, Michigan.
That is correct.
Do you know the relative distance between the two locations?
It's about an hour's drive per Google Maps.
Okay, each direction.
Yes, sorry.
So we saw the record that indicated they checked out of that Auburn Hills hotel on Friday, December 3rd. Did you uncover evidence that they had obtained more cash that day?
Yes, I did.
This is Exhibit 367. What are we looking at here?
This is a withdrawal from Flagstar on December 3rd for the amount of $4,000.
Was evidence uncovered to suggest that they had transferred money from their son's account?
Yes,
This is Exhibit 370. What is this?
this is a Flagstar withdrawal from Simply Kids Savings. There's two withdrawals. There's 1129,
Simple Kids Savings.
In the amount of what?
$292, and then
Okay.
there's a second withdrawal on the 30th the following day of $3,000.
Okay, what was the balance left in this Simply Kids savings account?
The remaining balance was 99 cents.
Okay, and that was the day of the shooting, the 30th?
The 30th, yes, sir.
Do you know where the defendant and his wife went after they left the Auburn Hills hotel?
Yes, once they left the Auburn Hills Hotel, they went to the address in Detroit on Bellevue.
Okay, and that's we've heard testimony from Mr. Kirtley and the Detroit police officers, 1111 Bellevue in Detroit?
1111 Bellevue, correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you portions of surveillance video. We saw some of this earlier. This is different clips. This is exhibits 371 and 372. So 371 is first. And again, so we know the timestamp is actually 22 minutes off. I think we've already clarified that. so the record is clear, the actual time here is 10:58 a.m. Is that your understanding as well, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And just tell us, please, sir, when you see anybody you recognize.
The man walking with his phone, I believe, is the leasee of the suite or room or whatever that the Crumbleys were staying in.
That was Suite 130.
130.
Okay.
The vehicle coming in is the vehicle that we identified as Jennifer Crumbley's Kia.
And the Kia that was left at the Auburn Hills was identified as James Crumbley's Kia.
That's right.
How cute that they both had Kias.
Do you recognize either individual exiting from what was identified as Jennifer Crumbley's Kia?
I recognize both individuals,
Okay. Tell us who, please.
James Crumbly and Jennifer Crumbly.
And where is the defendant, James Crumbley, in this video?
He's walking up now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right here?
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is the location they were found at 1:30 a.m. the next day, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
1111 Belleville, okay.
Yep.
Now, that car was pulled in with the front facing forward, is that right?
That is right.
Okay, did you come to learn that the defendant moved that car subsequent to pulling up at 10:58 a.m.?
Yes.
I'm going to show you it's been admitted as 372. So this is just before 4 p.m. on December the 3rd?
That's correct.
I mean, that is another indication that they were running as fugitives, that they had both cars with them, right?
So according to your testimony, this would be about 4 hours after he was charged with 4 homicide offenses?
That's correct.
Aaron, I would object to that question. Mr. Keast indicated that James Crumbly was charged with homicide offenses.
This is a homicide.
I think we've been clear that this is an involuntary manslaughter case, Your Honor.
It's a homicide.
It goes by both names. The title of the charge is homicide and involuntary manslaughter.
Right.
You're both right.
May I
Sir,
answer?
yeah, please.
So that was at 4:17. At 4 o'clock was the time that the judge had ordered the defendant and his wife to turn themselves in.
Okay, so when when it became clear that they hadn't turned themselves in, was their license plate made public?
Yes, it was.
Was the license plate on the front or the back of the vehicle?
In Michigan, we only require the license plate on the rear of the vehicle. I've worked fugitive investigations. Oftentimes, fugitives will back into a spot to one, attempt to secure, hide their license plate, and also it's easier to get away if necessary.
Okay. Now,
You sneaky.
correct me if I'm wrong, but there were no arrangements to have a surrender with this defendant or his wife. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So at the time this occurred, there was no plan with law enforcement to turn himself in.
No, sir.
And in fact, someone with a valid felony arrest warrant, they don't get to choose when they get to turn themselves in.
Absolutely not.
Now, sir, I want to go back to November the 30th, 2021. In the afternoon, you had already assumed investigative command. Would that be right while you were on scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said you met with Special Agent Brandon while on scene at the high school?
I did.
Okay, and what did you task him with?
I tasked him with tracing, well, frankly, he offered. He came to me and said, do you know who the registered owner of the gun was? And at the time, I did not. He testified earlier, and you heard that it was secured in a garbage can. One of our officers, upon the arrest of the shooter, pulled out the garbage bag portion of it and took just the plastic waste bin and put the gun to keep it all centrally located because searches were still going on and whatever. That officer had turned it over to me. I took my post in the front office there. I sat it next to me. At some point during the day, Special Agent Brandon came to me and said, hey, have you identified the owner of this weapon yet? And I have not. So he's like, I'm the ATF. Sounded like a really good idea to have him track this down, and he got right on it.
Okay, and was that information relayed back to you fairly quickly?
It was.
And did you learn that that murder weapon was in fact purchased November the 26th, 2021?
Yes.
Now, you learned the identity of the shooter while you were still at high school, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that you had tasked Lieutenant Marsban with securing the family home and securing a search warrant.
Yes.
Now, at that time, did you know if there were any other casualties outside of the school?
We did not. Like I said, I'd gotten some information from area hospitals that some wounded were coming in. So at that point, we're like, well, there's several hospitals in the general facility, so we had to assign officers out to different hospitals to make sure that we could locate and identify any potential victims.
Okay, so when you sent officers there, they didn't know what to find, what to expect.
No clue.
All right. At some point, was there a concern about explosives in the school?
Yeah, so as I was stating earlier, I was getting sent and others were getting sent and observed Twitter, now X posts, Instagram posts, YouTube videos, and we had came across a YouTube video of the defendant's son making a secondary explosive device, potentially more commonly known as a Molotov cocktail, and detonating it. We, at the time, and we'll talk, I guess, about the journal, we found some information in the journal that suggests that there may be secondary devices in place within the school. That prolonged my ability to go and investigate the scene of the crime because we had to continually sweep to make sure that the area was completely safe.
Okay, and in fact, did you have to call in a specialized unit to handle that?
We did, yes, Captain Hill, he activated the Michigan State bomb squad with their bomb dogs, and they came in with their robot.
Now, were you able to determine what area, what room or area of the school specifically the shooter left right before he began shooting?
Yes, it was the bathroom adjacent to room 258.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been admitted as people 16. What are we looking at here?
This is the the backpack and contents that the shooter was seen observed wearing walking into the bathroom prior to the shooting beginning.
Okay. Now, was this photograph taken after the location was made safe by the bomb squad?
That's correct.
Okay. And they didn't find any explosive devices?
They did not.
Okay. Now, what do you see in this picture? What was seized as evidence?
The most obvious thing is you see the book open, that is the shooter's journal.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to review that journal?
I did. I have.
Were you able to identify it as being written by the shooter?
Yes, sir.
How are you able to make that identification?
There's, first of all, his name's in it. That was the most glaring way to identify that it was his. His writing is unique and it matched some homework and other writings that we saw. There's references to several incidents that occurred in the school within the month of November, things of that nature.
Okay, so you, from the content of the journal itself, you're able to put a time frame on when the journal was likely written?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about that.
The first date written would have been November 9th. But it did reference incidents that happened before that,
Okay, in the month of November?
in the month of November,
Okay,
yes.
as well as incidents that happened after that in the month of November?
Yes, sir.
How many pages of writing are contained in that journal?
22.
Okay, so is it filled with writing from front to back, or is it at different parts, or how is it
No,
organized?
it actually appears to be written from back to front and it stops about a quarter way through.
Okay, now, out of the 22 pages, is there, I guess, a title page or something to signify the end of the journal, end of the writing?
There's, yes, I mean,
Okay,
to answer your question simply, yes.
so out of the pages with writing in that journal, how many contain reference to the school shooting?
All 22.
Now, for the record, I'm going to show you some of these slides, or some of these passages rather from the journal, and I'm going to refer to them by page number, and just so you're clear, sir, they're indicated page 1 from where the writing starts to page 22, which would be the back binding of that journal. Is that accurate?
Understood, yes.
Okay. Now, is the journal in written format or were drawings contained as well?
Both.
Okay. Were there any passages in this journal that you noted indicative of the shooter's request for mental health help?
Yes.
This is People's 359. Can you read what's written in this passage, please?
Yes. I have zero help, and help is bolded, for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the fucking school.
This is page 5. For the record, that was page 6 on the journal. Same exhibit, page 5. Could you read that, please?
Yes. I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, so I can't get any help.
That's page 5. This is page 19. What does this say?
My parents won't listen to me about help or a therapist.
All right. Now, were there any journal entries about the shooter's desire to obtain a 9mm handgun?
Yes, sir.
Same exhibit, page 3. Can you tell us what this is, please?
Yes. The shooter writes, so we should be bound to get my SD 9VE soon.
Okay. Now, that specific term, SD9VE, did you see that anywhere else in this case?
Yes, I did.
This is People's 85 and 86. What do we see here?
This is a picture of a Smith & Wesson model number SD9VE that was for sale, that was extracted from the defendant's phone.
Okay. And Mr. Rogowski testified this was from Monday, November the 8th, sent from the defendant's son to the defendant in a message that was deleted. Do you hear for that testimony?
Yes, I was.
Now back to the journal. This is page 22. Can you please read us what this says?
Yes. The shooter writes, I want to shoot up the fucking school so badly. Soon, I am going to buy a 9mm pistol.
Same exhibit, page 17. Go ahead.
All I need is my 9mm pistol, which I am currently begging my dad for.
And page 22.
I will
This is
have,
this is the binding, right?
The binding,
22? Okay,
correct.
Go ahead.
I will have to find where my dad hid my 9mm before I can shoot the school.
And page 15.
Unfortunately, my dad does not want me to get the 9mm gun, and we are having financial problems, RN, for right now. And I don't have a job, so now I'm pissed because I want to do the shooting with a 9mm pistol as they are effective for killing. But RN, right now, all I got is a puny 22 LR Keltec that I don't know where my dad hid it.
Okay, and we heard evidence in this case that James Crumbleigh obtained a 22 caliber Caltech pistol in June of 2021. Is that right?
That is right, yep.
Were there journal entries regarding the shooter's plan?
Yes.
Okay, here's page 3, same exhibit. Can you read this, please?
I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison.
Sir, did you find any journal entries regarding the shooter's access to the 9mm?
Yes, I did.
Same exhibit. This is also page 3. Go ahead.
Excuse me. First off, I got my gun. It's a SP 2022 6-hour 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and the ammo. I am fully committed to now. So yeah, I'm going to prison for life, and many people have about 1 day left to live.
Now, sir, we saw one of the journal entries that had the word help all bold that was across a couple of lines. Were there any other writings or passages in that bolded format?
Yes, there were, sir.
Were there pictures in the journal as well?
Yes, there were.
Okay, like what?
There's a picture of what appears to be an arm fully extended out with a gun pointed to the back of what appears to be a female's head.
Okay, and was that a little picture or a large picture?
It took up about that much of the page.
Okay, so to reference,
Oh, I'm sorry, about 3-4 inches of the page.
now is this journal a full-size book like this legal notepad, or was it smaller?
It was small.
Just going to mark this for a demonstrative exhibit. This would be 381. This is a demonstrative exhibit. Any first witness?
Any objections?
No, Your Honor, just for demonstrative purposes.
Sure, put a pair of gloves. Just take that one. So you can see. Can you just hold it up for the jury so they can see, please? And thank you, sir. And that's what's depicted here in Table 16 that we're referring to?
That's correct. If this was laid open.
Yeah, first one.
Sure.
Would you mind putting it back in? Sir, we've heard evidence and we've heard the 911 call that James Crumbleigh made on Tuesday, November 30th at 1:34 p.m. You're aware of that call?
Yes, sir.
And you were in court when it was played?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we've also heard testimony that the Meyer and Ray Road next to the high school was the emergency location for Oxford High School parents in case of emergency at the high school.
The reallocation point, yeah.
Yes. And did the police likewise notify the community of that as well?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Do you recall when that occurred?
I believe the first 911 call that the sheriff's office dispatch advised that the Meyer will be the relocation point was at approximately 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock that day. So just 10 minutes or so after the shooting.
Okay, so the shooting began at 12:51 p.m. This was 1 p.m. the same day?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware how many 911 calls were placed to dispatch in that time period?
Yeah,
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
How is it relevant?
He's going to testify as to who identified their son as the shooter, Judge.
Okay, that's not relevant to how many, 911 existing, but that's not relevant.
How many people identified their son as the shooter?
just one,
Nobody else?
nobody else.
Was there more than one 911 call?
There was,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, that maybe that is relevant. How many 911 calls is it relevant, but how, I guess out of those, how
It
many?
gives the answer context, Judge.
Okay,
How many 911 calls were placed at that day?
112 were able to be answered within the immediacy of the shooting.
Okay, now those 112, how many identified their son as the suspect?
Just one, the defendant.
Okay, sir, as the officer in charge, you've reviewed the surveillance video of Oxford High School.
Yes, I have.
Okay. We're going to play that now. Judge, could you please instruct the media not to film?
can you remind me how long it is? I just want to decide whether or not we're showing the break first or after.
It's just a few minutes, Judge.
Okay, I thought it was gonna be one. Okay.
It might be a good idea to speak right after.
Can you not videotape the video that we're about to play? And I also went over any victims or victims' family in the courtroom that we're about to play the video.
Your Honor, I'm objecting for the reasons previously stated.
I understand.
May I proceed, Judge? Sure.
Harlot, that's actually not an opinion, that's scientific fact. That mental illness can be caused by neglect. So that's fact.
Just so we understand the date and time, we have a time stamp and date stamp at the bottom here. November 30th, 2021. This is at 12:46 p.m. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to
And prosecutor, it's correct, there's no audio.
correct. There's no audio. Let me know, please, when you recognize the shooter in this frame.
So we aren't going to be hearing any audio or seeing any
He just
visual.
walked out and made a left. You'll be able to see him more clearly momentarily.
But we should watch the reaction of James.
He's right about to enter right now.
Okay, the individual turning into the bathroom there is the defendant's son?
That is the defendant's son, yes.
Okay, so for the record, this is 12:46 p.m.?
Correct.
And this video it skips with time delay, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is 12:51 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in case you don't know, they're actually showing video of when the incident took place. We don't get to see it or hear it. We just hear the witness on stand describing it. So it'll be interesting to see James's expression on his face as they watch. He has been pretty emotional. Here he goes. He's been pretty emotional in court watching a lot of this stuff. Here he goes. The vibe, the tone of his emotion is different than Jennifer's, I feel. His is more remorseful. Hers was more about herself. I just get the sense, and I could be wrong about this, that she felt ashamed to have been associated with this child that did this thing, and he just feels horrified about the entire situation. It's complicated though. Yeah, she was bawling during the, when they were showing this particular video. But almost like she was bawling, like, how dare you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And it just seems like he sees more of the pain for everybody. And I could be reading that into him. I could be, I don't know. I still see him as culpable in all of this. I do. I really do. Yeah, I agree, Anonymous. His face is getting a little more red. He's really holding it in. Yep, I agree. I agree, Blue. They are. They are sparkles. When she was getting so emotional in court, it felt so selfish and so inconsiderate with all of those parents in there. She's like, oh, look at what's happening. That's my son. But their children are dead, right? And she's not taking that into consideration as she falls to the floor. Yeah, that's the sense that I get, Harlot. But again, I don't know for sure. That's right. She did say that, Sparkles. It was infuriating. She was so callous. And who knows, maybe it was all that Adderall and Vivarin she was taking before. I don't know, man. I get the sense that she was more about, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And he's more about, how could this happen? How did we do this? How did we contribute to this horrifying situation. Yep. It might have been like some defense strategy for her to say she wouldn't change anything, but it was tone deaf as fuck, man. It was tone deaf as fuck.
We have Rachel.
Yes, Lieutenant, you can step down, but you may not discuss your testimony with someone, right? Right, you can step down. Have about a 10-minute.
All rise for the jury.
Be seated and please remain seated while the defendant is removed.
All right. Well, they're taking a 10-minute break. In the meantime, first of all, I just want to remind us all, I know you don't need this reminding, but I like to just make sure we all remember this is why we're here. This is who matters the most. In the courtroom, they just watched the surveillance footage from the actual incident that took these two young children's lives. Yesterday, I read the descriptions of these children. The youngest one is on the very left. She was only 14 years old. They were very, very young and beautiful and vibrant, and they had their entire lives ahead of them. And it just, it's pretty heavy to think about these 4 children and other children whose lives are taken this way. And I'm just really hoping that at the very least, parents are paying attention to mental health a little bit more as a result of this. Hello, Christina. Nice to see you. So I came across an interview I'd like to show you of some of the some survivors, some parents of survivors from the from this incident. I wanted to
I thought it'd be nice to watch. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm just interested in seeing what they have to say. So let's watch this together. Because it's really, you know, the survivors and the people who were affected by this who matter the most, right?
Shooter Ethan Crumbley is expected back in court tomorrow morning. Now, James Crumbley is charged with involuntary manslaughter after his son killed 4 students and injured 11 others inside of Michigan's Oxford High School in 2021. Prosecutors claim Crumbley failed to properly respond to his son's declining mental health leading up to that attack. And just last month, the shooter's mother, Jennifer Crumbley, was convicted on similar charges, laying the groundwork for James's prosecution. And during her trial, Jennifer pointed the finger at her husband, saying he's responsible for buying their son that 9mm handgun that was used in that deadly day. Joining us now is attorney Ben Johnson.
It is interesting that there was a lot of finger pointing in Jennifer's trial at James. I haven't seen a lot of finger pointing going the other way. Tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing something, but I just haven't seen a lot of the finger pointing going the other way.
And Megan Gregory, mother of an Oxford High student who survived that terrifying attack. Thank you both. And Megan in particular, it's good to see you again. Your story is still on my heart after the last time we spoke. And Megan, we'll start with you. What do you want to see happen with the father, James? What does justice look like?
I want to see him be held accountable for sure. Whatever the maximum they give or can give, I hope it happens. Every time new things come out in court, I think all of us are sort of mind blown hearing how bad it truly was and how their parenting was just not up to par at that time.
Yeah. Ben, I want your legal perspective here because during her trial last month, Jennifer Crumbley really placed the blame on her husband. She claimed that Crumbley was the one who bought the gun, who mishandled it. Do you think a jury will believe the narrative that one parent may hold more blame than the other?
Well, I think what we're going to find out is that they're going to blame both parents because they were certainly pretty equal participants in ignoring the calls for help. And if you will, anybody that has a child, your heart goes out, even though this person ended up doing something horrible. It's like he was trying to get the attention of his parents, and when he needed them the most, they split. And I buying a gun doesn't make up for it, and calling it your Christmas present.
Megan, we know that the school called that meeting with the family on the day of the shooting, hours before it happened, and that Jennifer and James Crumbley declined to pull their son out of school despite these violent, these very disturbing images discovered by teachers. Do you believe that the school also holds any responsibility for the 4 deaths?
I do believe that the school holds quite a bit of responsibility. When we found out that things were happening the year before, and the counselor was asked to talk to him numerous times, and that was never taken seriously. His scores were never taken seriously. I mean, he was obviously a threat, whether it was to himself or others. Something needed to be done, and it was not.
Then on Friday, before the weekend, jurors heard this 911 call that was placed by the father, James Crumbley, in the immediate aftermath of the attack, warning police that his son could be the Oxford shooter. What implications could this call have in this trial?
Well, I think it's huge. Obviously, the state of mind of James Crumbley was, oh my God, I think it's my kid that's the shooter. Well, why did you think that? And why do you think that the gun's gone? Why did you call the police and say, I think he might have the gun? You were just in the principal's office just about 2 hours, not even a full 2 hours before. Why didn't you or Mrs. Crumbley mention that you just bought a semi-automatic firearm for Christmas for your kid? And Mrs. Crumbley took him to the shooting range to practice not even 2 days before. Obviously, important information to share, and absolutely should have taken their kid out of that school and taking them to an emergency room and having an immediate psychiatric evaluation.
I appreciate those details. And Megan, I have to ask you, I cannot imagine what it has been like to watch these two trials, how triggering, how hard it must be for you and your family and other families while you're all trying to heal from what happened. I do want to point out that Keegan, your son, is alive today, reportedly thanks to the actions of one of the victims. Briefly, can you tell us what you understand happened that day and your message for the family of the boy who protected your son?
Yeah, when they were in the bathroom together, Justin had put Keegan in the stall with him and had him get up on the toilet to hide his feet. And then he stood behind the partition. And there were a lot of things Justin did in terms of helping Keegan out, you know, making a plan to run. The minute we have a chance, we want to get out of here. We've got to make a break. Putting his phone on camera to see if his feet were under there. Just really life-saving things that I think put Keegan in the right frame of mind. And I mean, I'm close with their family and they know how I feel. I can't, you know, thank them enough for raising a child that would put someone else before themselves in such a horrible situation. I mean, we can't thank them enough.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to
Oh my God, that's such a heartbreaking story. So, Justin Schilling, actually, I saw another report, Blue, about that kid. It was these parents actually that did an interview that said he is not doing. It was actually right after Jennifer Crumbley's trial. He had to. He had to be. I'm trying to find the right terminology for it. That doesn't sound terrible. He had to go into treatment after Jennifer Crumbley's trial because of all of this. So their son, you know, he really is suffering. Yes, he had to go inpatient. He did. And they didn't go into details about what happened to cause him to need to go inpatient. You know, they didn't talk about whether he was actively doing anything, but it sounded like it was really, really bad, that he was in a terrible, terrible, terrible place. And you know, and we know that was because, you know, he was in a very specific, he has tremendous survivor's guilt because of that incident. And that's the one that we know about, right? That's the one that we know about. We don't know about all the other kids that are feeling, you know, varying degrees of the same way. And just think of how many people, all the kids, their parents, the people that love all of these kids and their parents, you know, the people who were injured, you know, there are lots of people injured. The teacher who was shot, you know, and has to keep coming back and testifying because she was such a clear witness to all of it. And it really is, it really is horrible and it's tragic. The 10 minutes has come by and yep, it looks like they're coming back very soon. But and I didn't know those details of what I didn't know those details of what they just talked about on camera there, about how Justin had like told him to stand on the toilet, and then that entire interaction, you know, let's go into the bathroom, go into the stall, stand on the toilet, turned on his camera, on his phone to make sure you couldn't see him there. I mean, come on. I mean, that was some extensive measures taken. Then to find out that that kid who went to all those lengths was then killed. And, I've seen segments of the Miller hearing, but I think what I might want to do at some point is just watch the entire Miller hearing at some point, because, I am pretty invested in this case. And I feel like that's an empty piece that I haven't seen, and I've heard so much about it. I saw the part where the psychiatrist testified about the mental state that Ethan was in. Sorry, the shooter was in. Yeah. Agree, Anonymous. Yeah, I think I remember seeing snippets of that young man testifying, and he may have even testified at the shooter's trial, if I recall correctly. Am I recalling that correctly? That's right, Lucy. The thing is, just to put things in a little bit of perspective, when you are raised in a horribly abusive and toxic family, and you are abused before you have memory, there is no before and after. It just is. It's what you think is normal. So your entire perspective is skewed from the time you have memory. And that's and that's the thing that has always driven me, is knowing that there's generations and generations and generations being generated of kids who are being born into families and cultures and societies that are skewed by social media already. Or skewed by the transgenerational trauma of abuse, of the abusive system that is already their family. Yes. So your entire existence is a response to trauma, but you don't know it. But you don't know it until somehow you're taken out of that context and are shown that there's a whole different way of thinking and being and existing. And then you have to be convinced that that is the more normal, healthy way of being than the way that you were brought up and told that is the normal, healthy way of being. It's a complete mind fuck. It's an absolute mind fuck. It's, well, and that's the whole thing about it, Lucy, is that, like, when you have childhood trauma and your trauma comes before you even have, it's pre-verbal, and and the trauma exists before you even have memory. Your entire perception of the world is skewed. Your entire perception of yourself is skewed. Where you exist in the world is skewed. How you think of people and how you think of people thinking of you is skewed. Yeah. So it's and what bothers me is that social media adds an entire massive layer of that trauma on top of an already existing layer of trauma. And they're making money off of it. It's hard to even these days tell what is normal. There really isn't normal, but there's, you know, there's a closer to normal than not. There's a there's a there's a healthy, and then there's a unhealthy. And there's a vast spectrum. There's a vast continuum in between, right? And yep. Let's all do a big group hug for our various levels of trauma and healing. And remember to hit the thumbs up. That's a nice hug for me. But I just hope that for these victims and the families, that they don't have to keep reliving this more and more after this, and that there is justice served. And I do, even though I agree with you all in what you were saying earlier about the role, the respective roles of Jennifer and James. I feel after seeing their behavior in court and the facts of the case, she really does seem to be dominant, and I feel like she was driving a lot of the decision making to flee. I mean, she was pretty caught up in her boo thing, and maybe you all know, I don't know, I haven't seen anything about this, but have any of you seen whether James already knew about her side pieces, about the threesomes she was trying to get, what, you know, yeah, about her Costco makeout sessions? Did he know about those things? How did he have to find out through this process? I'm just, you know, you would think maybe, Lucy, but sometimes, like, if he was so clueless about what was going on in his son's very fucked up mind and world, he might not have been clued into his wife's either. Well, it seemed like she might have been hiding it to a certain extent, because she was fooling around, you know, during work hours. They would meet in the Costco parking lot, right? And doing work trips or something like that. But, you know, the other thing though is that a lot of times when a person comes across as docile and mild-mannered, they're not always docile and mild-mannered. You know, they just appear that way in public, and behind the scenes, you know, behind closed doors, they're a maniac. For instance, so James seems docile and mild-mannered, but we're hearing that he had his communications restricted because he's threatening people. He's threatening people, so his communications have been restricted.
They're not supposed to be in contact with press because they're both witnesses to each other's criminal cases, and they separated their cases. I think when they were, yeah, I don't think they're supposed to be in contact with each other. Yep, I agree, Christina.
All right.
Are you ready for the hearing?
Yes, right.
Yeah, they got yelled at for doing lovey signals on Zoom or something.
All rise for the jury.
All right, you may be seated. Lieutenant, you are still under oath, right?
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Lieutenant Willis, the video we just saw had some split screens in that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just so we're clear, that was, Mr. Wobrowski testified to nearly 100 surveillance cameras. And he spliced the video together.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was just taking the same time, just different angles, the same hallway.
That's correct.
Sir, could you tell us, please, who was wounded on November the 30th?
The wounded was Phoebe Arthur, Elijah Mueller, Riley Franz, Callie Osage, Molly Garnell, John Ashudo, and Aiden Watson.
May I proceed?
Sure.
This is admitted as People's One. Sir, what have I handed you?
This is the autopsy protocol for Hannah St. Juliana.
Sir, who was killed November the 30th, 2021?
That's correct.
This is Exhibit 5. Sir, how old was Hannah?
She was 14.
And how did she die?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the reading of the autopsy protocol into the record.
He's not
It's been
reading.
admitted.
He's not reading the office.
They're being admitted as exhibits 1 through 4, correct?
That's correct, Judge.
All right, so I think it was a question.
How did she die?
She died of multiple gunshot wounds.
May I proceed?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 2. What is that?
This is the autopsy protocol for Madison Baldwin.
And this is a picture of Madison and people 6 on the screen.
Yes,
How did she die, sir?
she had a gunshot wound to the head.
She was 17 years old.
Yes, sir.
This is Exhibit 3. So what have I handed you?
Autopsy protocol for Tate Neard, and he was 16 years old.
And how did he die?
He died from multiple gunshot wounds.
And this is Exhibit 4. That's an autopsy protocol?
Yes, sir. This is for Justin Schilling, He was 17 years old.
And how did he die, sir?
Died of a gunshot wound to the head.
And those are the 4 students who were killed inside Oxford High School on November the 30th, 2021.
That's correct.
I have nothing further.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Detective Goodwin.
Good afternoon.
Go back to November 30th of 2021, when you were made aware of the shooting at Oxford High School.
Okay.
You testified today that you were at the prosecutor's office
I was.
and you were advised, you said by the prosecutor and her chief assistant, that was the chief prosecutor, Ms. McDonald,
Correct.
and her chief assistant came to the office where you were discussing another case.
We were in a conference room in their office and they came, yes.
The prosecutor asked you about these swear-tos that were conducted, both for the charges made against him and the charges alleged against his son as well, the charge made against his son. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
And the prosecutor confirmed with you that the process for the swear-to is open to the public.
That's correct.
You said that both the public and the media were present at the swear-tos for both Mr. Crumbly's son and also Mr. Crumbly.
That's right.
For Mr. Crumbly's son, you made note that Mr. Crumbly was not present in person for the swear-to in the arraignment.
Yes, I stated he was he was there on Zoom.
And if you recall, his son was also on Zoom for the arraignment. Is that correct?
His son was in custody.
But he was not there in person in custody, if you recall.
That's correct.
After the Oxford High School shooting on November 30th of 2021, do you recall receiving tips and receiving information and were made aware of concerns for the safety of James and Jennifer Crumbly after their son's name had been made public, if you recall?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall that their residence had been identified publicly?
I don't recall it, but if I can explain, I think I do know that there was media was there, but I don't recall it being released anywhere, if that makes sense.
And I'm not suggesting that law enforcement release that location. Obviously, you talked about the social media posts,
Yes.
that there was a lot of information coming into you and your department. There was a lot of information being made public that wasn't necessarily true. There was a lot going on at the time on November 30th of 2021, separate from the tragedy at the school.
That's fair.
You said that on December 2nd of 2021, that you and the prosecutor's office were having discussions about possibly charging James and Jennifer Crumbly.
That's correct.
You know that at some point on December 2nd of 2021, not necessarily the nature of not the content of the discussions, but the nature of the discussions about potentially charging was made public.
I'm not familiar with that.
If you recall, there were media reports and information put out into the media that James and Jennifer may be facing charges.
That may be true. At that point, I was completely involved. Like there was things that came out in the media that people tell me about today I have no idea about because I wasn't.
Yes, and you had a lot going on. And obviously, when I ask you a question, I'm just asking you
I
questions
understand.
about what you know about.
I understand.
You knew on December 2nd, you testified today that you knew on December 2nd of 2021 that James and Jennifer Crumbly were not staying at their residence.
Yes.
You knew that they'd left on November 30th of 2021.
Correct.
And that was before charges had been announced against them,
Yes.
and before there was any sort of information that may have been put into the media that charges may be forthcoming.
Yes.
That was in fact the day of the actual Oxford High School shooting that they stopped staying at their residence.
To my understanding, yes.
The prosecutor showed you Exhibit 362, which is a Holiday Inn Express receipt, correct?
Yes,
And if you recall, the room was registered to Jennifer Crumbly,
I believe you.
if you recall.
I don't recall, but I believe you.
You know that at some point on December 1st, James and Jennifer left. Oh, and before I go past that, you also know that on November 30th that James and Jennifer Crumbly, and you testified that you learned during your investigation that there was a conversation either with Detective Sergeant Brian or Lieutenant Marsvan about James and Jennifer obtaining those phones.
Yes,
And the purpose was because they had given their phones to law enforcement and they didn't have any way to communicate with people, if you recall the information they were given.
they were taken in a search warrant. Whether they gave them to, I guess, is subjective. But yeah, they were. We obtained them, and it's my understanding the advice given to them, which again isn't uncommon, is that purchase phones so you can maintain communications.
Exhibit 365, you know that on December 1st of 2021, that James and Jennifer left that Holiday Inn in Lapeer and checked into an extended stay in Auburn Hills.
What day did you say?
December 1st of 2021.
Yes.
Now Lapeer, for those who aren't familiar, is north of Oxford.
It is.
It's north of Auburn Hills.
It is.
So they left the Lapeer area and came down to Auburn Hills, which is 15 minutes south of Oxford. I could be wrong about the time.
But you referenced Lapeer essentially borders Oxford,
Okay.
and
On the north
on the
side.
north side, and then you got Rochester. 20 minutes. I don't know.
Okay, I won't lock you into a time, but they came and they came slightly south of, still in Oakland County, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You noted specifically that there was an Auburn Hills Police Department across the street from the extended stay.
Yes.
Now, you know that Jennifer and James Crumbleigh checked out of the extended stay on December 3rd of 2021,
Yes.
which was that Friday.
Yes.
You don't know what time they left the hotel, correct?
If the checkout's on the, but I don't know.
You know what time checkout is,
Yes.
based on the receipt and the documents, correct?
Yes.
But you don't know what time they left, whether if it was at checkout or before, you have no idea.
That's right.
At some point on, in Exhibit 368 is the T-Mobile receipts from the T-Mobile in Owasso.
Okay.
Those are dated December 2nd of 2021, if
Okay.
you recall.
Yes, I do.
And there was some conversation about the distance that Owasso is from Auburn Hills, because on December 2nd of 2021, James and Jennifer Crumbleigh had been staying at the extended stay in Auburn Hills.
Yes, and I believe they went to Owasso to get their phones.
Right. They drove to Owasso to get their phones and then went back to the extended stay, from what you understand.
Yes.
So they didn't stay in Owasso, correct? Overnight, to your knowledge.
No.
Now, you are aware that after the Oxford High School shooting, there were a variety of reactions and emotions to what occurred at Oxford High School.
Yes.
There was terror,
From whom?
anyone at the school.
More than likely.
There was anger.
Are you
I'm
just
speaking
talking
in
in general?
general. In general.
I would guess after an incident like that, every emotion imaginable could be.
Right.
Okay.
You're aware that once the identity of the shooter at Oxford High School was made public, you were also made aware during your investigation that a lot of that anger, or some of that anger, was directed toward the parents of the shooter, James and Jennifer Crumbleigh.
I can't say specifically, no.
The defense keeps
Exhibits
trying to say they were
371
being
and
threatened.
372 were the videos from 1111 Bellevue in Detroit. You noted that there was a difference of 22 minutes on the timestamp on the video from the actual time.
Yes,
So the video was 22 minutes ahead of what the actual clock time was, if you recall.
I think that's right.
The video, I believe it's 371, shows that James and Jennifer arrived at approximately 10:59 a.m. at 1111 Bellevue.
Okay,
And that was prior to the swear-to that you testified was conducted at noon.
that I believe it was around noon, correct?
And again, I'm not asking you to lock in on the exact time, if it was 12:01 or 12:02 or whatever the time may be, but 10:59 is obviously before around noon.
It is.
And the two videos that you were shown, the exhibit 372 is after 4 p.m., where it shows that James Crumbley walked out of the building and turned the car around and then went back in the building.
Yes. Was it 417 or something like that?
Correct. So the two clips that you saw, there were actually many, many clips from throughout that day, if you recall, that you've reviewed as part of your investigation.
Yes.
In fact, as part of your investigation, you reviewed those clips and know that one or both of James and or Jennifer Crumbley were in and out of that building on more than one occasion on December 3rd of 2021.
I don't recall.
Do you recall that there was video of James specifically leaving the building to smoke and going back in on more than one time?
I can't say. I don't know.
And we heard, you were in here when Investigator Creer testified,
Yes.
and he talked about finding, I believe he said 14 cigarette butts next to the Kia
Yes.
in the 1111 Bellevue parking lot.
Mhm. Yes.
So you don't specifically recall whether or not James and Jennifer did leave the building. You don't recall whether they didn't. It's fair to say you just don't recall.
That's right.
You testified that at 4 o'clock, a judge ordered James and his wife to turn themselves in.
Yes.
You don't know whether James had knowledge of that order from the judge.
I mean, it's safe. I mean, there's some evidence in my mind that points to that he's aware.
You did not see anything in your review of the case and of the evidence that you've obtained in this case to suggest that James was not going to turn himself in. And I'm not asking about anything that you've seen that you may or may not be able to talk about, but I'm asking specifically, you haven't seen anything to suggest that they weren't going to turn
So I have
themselves
to
in.
object to the form of the question. She can't try to pigeonhole a witness if he has more information and then limit the answer in his base of knowledge.
Well, it was kind of a long question too, so, but you specifically asking him,
Your Honor, I'll rephrase my questions a little bit because there was multiple questions. You asked, and we heard the testimony, you asked retired Sergeant Hendrick to locate James and Jennifer Crumbley on December 2nd of 2021.
That's correct.
That was on the date that there were discussions about potentially charging James and Jennifer Crumbley.
That's correct.
On December 3rd of 2021, they had not been located at that time, earlier in the day.
What time?
Before dark.
No, they weren't located.
They were
To my
located,
knowledge, they weren't located.
right. To your knowledge, they were located later in the day, and we heard the testimony about that information, correct?
Yes.
You testified about a video, I believe you said it was posted on Twitter, of the shooter, a Molotov cocktail or something?
I believe it was a YouTube video.
Okay. You have no information that James was aware of that video?
No.
Now, Exhibit 16 is a photograph of the backpack and contents in the bathroom that we looked at.
Okay.
The photo shows that the journal that was in the backpack was open, and I believe you testified that that was opened by law enforcement.
To be honest, I'm not, so if I can recap that, the Michigan State Police Bomb Squad went in there. They arranged the items to my understanding, and that's how, the first time I saw that, that's how it was.
Okay, so you don't have any specific knowledge about how that was opened or who opened it. You just know that when you saw the contents, that's how they were as they were in the photograph.
Right.
You identified the journal as that of the shooter because his name was in it.
Yes. Among other things.
Right. You said also the writing matched homework that you saw and things of that nature. The first date that you have written in the journal you testified was November 9th of 2021.
I believe that's right.
You indicated that there were references to incidents prior to November 9th of 2021, but you don't specifically know what the dates were that those incidents were written about. Is that fair?
I think I might,
Based on reading the journal.
based on everything I've read.
Okay. So based on everything you have about all the knowledge you have about the case that you learned after November 30th of 2021, you may have additional information.
Yes.
But looking at the journal, you can't tell from the dates. There aren't dates other than November 9th of 2021, and I think there might be a couple other ones referencing the shooting.
You're correct.
Okay. You testified that the journal appears to be written from back to front. So opening the front cover, there would be no writing, but if you flip to the back, then it's the 22 pages from the back forward that have writing on them.
It seems that way, yes.
And again, I think this is an obvious question, but I'm going to ask you. You have no indication that James Crumbley was aware that that journal existed, correct?
No, I think I know he knew it existed.
That that journal existed.
Yeah, he mentioned it in his counseling session that why didn't you write, you can write in your journal.
Right, and we heard from the counselor and we heard from the dean of students, who both testified that there was a mention of a journal, but that there were no specifics given. It doesn't say the journal in your backpack, the one you always keep with you. He didn't provide colors. He didn't provide any descriptive detail. We saw in the search warrant photos that were taken that there were additional notebooks and could be journals in the shooter's bedroom. He references the journal, the school counselor and the dean of students mentioned a journal, testified about a journal. They indicated that James Crumbley said, you have a journal. But there's no specifics given about what that journal is. Is that fair?
That was a long question.
It was a very long question. Yes. There were no specifics given during that meeting at the school about whether James had any knowledge of what the journal looked like, if he knew what was in it, or anything like that.
No.
Specifically pages 15 and 22 that we have that were admitted as exhibit 359. On page 15, if you recall, the shooter is writing about wanting a 9mm and then he's mad because he wants to get it because that's what he wants for the school shooting, correct?
Can we put it?
Yes. In fact, I can hand this to you because I don't have it electronically. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. It's flipped open to page 15.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm sorry, what was your question, Counselor?
Page 15.
Okay.
There's some mention about the shooter wanting a 9mm gun. He wants it for the school shooting. And he's mad that he hasn't gotten it yet.
I'm not. Yes.
Okay.
He's pissed.
Pissed is the word he used, correct? Page 15 also includes this statement. He mentions the Caltech and says he has to find where his dad hid it.
Yes, that's what it says.
If you'd like to, yes. I'm going to go to page 22 next, Mr. Keese. Mr. Keese is going to put them on the screen for you.
Thank you.
May I approach, Hannah?
Well, I'm getting the sense that we aren't going to be hearing like a half hour of this lady's personal story and her daughter comparisons in her closing statements. So I'm relieved about that.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. So that's the page 15 that you just looked at, correct? The portion that I asked you to look at.
Yes.
Page 22. If you could go to page 22, Mr. Keith, thank you.
There's a few 22.
Page 22, the binding.
Which exhibit number is this?
359, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Page 22, and again, we discussed that this was written along the binding, so along the inside edge of the page, correct, in the journal?
Yes.
And it says, I would have to find where my dad hid my 9mm before I can shoot school, correct?
That is what it says.
Now, we know based on the testimony that you've heard, and you've been sitting in court during the trial, we know that there was a 9mm handgun purchased on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
That the
correct.
shooting at the high school occurred on November 30th of 2021. That the shooter and his mom went to the shooting range on November 27th of 2021. So this portion would have been written at some point between November 27th of 2021 and arguably the morning of November 30th of 2021.
There's a little bit of shade to Jennifer right there.
Well, we know that there was no 9mm handgun in the house until November 26th of 2021. Correct? Based on your investigation.
I see 9mm.
Yes, because this specifically references a 9mm.
It does.
This is different than the other on page 15, which specifically references the CalSAC.
I got you.
So, although Mr. Crumbly's son says my 9mm, we know that there was a 9mm purchase on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
That he went to the shooting range on November 27th of
Yes.
2021, and the shooting occurred on November 30th of 2021.
Yes.
So we know, and this page was page 22, which would have been the back cover of the journal. Is that fair? If you recall? If you don't, it's okay. But we can read this and know that it would have been written after definitely November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
On page 3 of the journal, Mr. Keese, if you don't mind, page 3, thank you. It's access. Yes. If you look at the third line of this entry, it says, I have access to the gun and the ammo. Do you see that?
I do see it.
Now, you don't recall seeing anything in this journal or even around this entry that says, my dad told me where the gun and ammo are, correct?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. You don't recall reading anything in the journal that says, my dad told me where the gun and ammo are.
I do not.
You don't remember reading anything in the journal. You didn't see anything in the journal that says, my dad showed me where the gun and ammo are.
No, I didn't read that.
So when it says I have access, you don't know how he obtained access. Is that fair? It just says I have access, exactly what the words are.
No one's accusing James of doing that.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes. Reading this journal entry and the information that you have that you've read in the journal, this doesn't say how Mr. Crumbly's son had access to the firearm. Is that fair?
That's right. Just simply that he had access.
Simply that he had access.
Understood.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Briefly, thank you, Judge. Starting off with the journal here. You were asked if James Crumbly knew it existed, and you indicated that you believe that the answer was that, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you were here for Mr. Hopkins' testimony as well as Mr. Ejak's testimony. Of course, you're the officer in charge of the investigation. In that meeting with James Crumbly, did he say journals, plural, or journal as in singular?
Just a singular journal.
Okay. And there were notebooks found in the home, one called East Knox. We saw a picture of that. But were there any other journals found?
There were not.
Okay. And you indicated that you believe that you can tell approximately when the journal entries were written based upon the content.
Yes,
Okay, so I guess we didn't really go over it in direct examination, but there was an incident on November the 4th, 2021 at Oxford High School. Was that referenced in the journal?
it was.
And an incident that occurred November the 11th, 2021, was that referenced?
Yes,
The shooter referenced his friend who left the state October 31st.
he did.
Okay. Was there any indication anywhere in the journal that the 9mm was locked up?
No,
And we saw evidence in this case that the shooter obtained access to the Keltec pistol as well.
yes,
Okay, and that text message was, "Look what my dad left out."
correct.
And what we have on the screen here, page 3, first off, I got my gun. It's an SP-2022 6-hour 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. We know, of course, the shooting occurred November the 30th, 2021. Can you presume a date on this passage? So this would be November the 21st, presumably.
Presumably.
Okay. Second, shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and ammo. And of course, we know that he did obtain that weapon.
We do.
Okay, and we know that the murder weapon from November the 30th was the weapon purchased by James Crumbleigh on November the 26th, 2021.
Absolutely.
Nothing further.
Brief request, or brief question? Very brief. And I don't mean to belabor the issue, but when it comes to journals or notebooks, you don't know what James calls a notebook, what he calls a journal. You have no idea. Is that fair?
That's not fair. I do know what he calls a journal because he called it a journal in the meeting with Mr. Hopkins.
Right. He said something about a journal.
He did.
You don't know if he's talking about a notebook. You don't know if he's talking about a journal, like a diary with a lock on it. You have no idea what he's talking about.
I got a pretty good idea. He's talking about a journal. That's what I can say.
A journal.
A journal.
He was talking.
The reference to the Caltech that Mr. Keys just asked you about was in August of 2021, correct? He asked about the video that we saw, the text that Mr. Crumbly's son sent to his friend about my dad left it out, LOL, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That was in August of 21,
Can you show me?
if you recall.
I don't recall.
You don't recall seeing anything from November of 21 in the journal or otherwise saying that Mr. Crumbly's son had access because Mr. Crumbly left a gun out in November of 21 or in the journal, correct?
Ask that again, please.
Sure. You don't recall seeing anything during your investigation from November of 21 that Mr. Crumbly had allegedly left a firearm out in the house and his son talked about it.
This is beyond the scope of my rewrite.
I still don't understand the question.
Sure, Your Honor. Mr. Keys asked about the text that was sent from Mr. Crumbly's son to his friend about his dad allegedly leaving the Caltech out.
Okay,
And he filmed a video of himself.
okay.
I'm trying to clarify that that video was in August of 21. I mean, if I need to, I'll pull up the exhibit, but I was just trying to clarify with the detective lieutenant.
Okay, I think if you showed me the exhibit, you'd be able to say, but you stipulated that that was from August of 21?
Were we talking about the Caltech?
Yes.
Sorry, yes, no, August 18th, 21, and August 20, I'm sorry,
August 9th.
I did it again. August 19th of 21 and August 20th of 21.
Okay, tell me what exhibit it
Your Honor, they stipulated to the date, so I don't need to ask again.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I just, based on that, there was evidence that we introduced in this case that the shooter filmed a video of himself holding the 6-hour 9mm handgun November 26, 2021.
Yes.
Okay. And there were also Instagram posts of him holding that same firearm on the 27th.
That is correct.
Okay. And I think I misspoke earlier. I said November 21st. As far as this passage being written, this would actually be November the 29th of 2021.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Judge.
All right, can you be excused?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you can step down and you're excused.
Thank you, Judge.
That was a-
Tell me where we're headed.
Judge, we have no further witnesses today. Before we officially rest, I'd like the opportunity to review our exhibit list. We had a lot of modifications throughout the case.
All right.
I want to confirm with defense counsel what was extracted and added on. And tomorrow morning, we'll know for sure.
All right, do you want 9 o'clock?
That's fine, Your Honor, yes.
9 o'clock. All right. I'm going to ask you to return at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Please know again that during the trial, you should not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence you consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. So to be fair to both sides, you must follow this instruction. Do not go on social media, do not post, do not do research, do not discuss the case with anyone. We really appreciate your commitment to this very important job. And we ask you to hang with us just a few more days. We're nearing closings within the week, I would think. Remember to fill out your lunch form for tomorrow. Stay healthy tonight, and don't discuss your case with anyone. Any questions about the schedule? Any questions about that? We appreciate you. Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
That sucks, Solo.
Please be seated and remain seated until the defendant is removed from the courtroom.
Oh my God, what is that?
Thank you,
Yes,
Judge.
Your Honor, thank you.
So I'm trying to figure out if they want to do that evidentiary stuff now or if they're going to be doing that tomorrow morning, which means they'll be late because I'm trying to figure out what time I want to start my stream tomorrow. I'll just figure that out later. But I found her line of questioning around the journal really dishonest. Because she was basically trying to imply that James Crumbley didn't have, when he talked about a journal, he couldn't have known what was in the journal, wouldn't have, or something. I'm going to remove this right now. He couldn't have known what was in the journal. So my impression, that's what it sounded like, Solo. Cat scratching a chalkboard. My impression of where she was going with that was just trying to take the journal out of contention as evidence or something that he would have known was written, would have known what the writings were in the journal, or could have known what the writings were in the journal. And part of that is because in the meeting on November 29th, November 30th, before the actual shooting took place, he said, you could write in your journal. And that was in the counseling session when they talked about mental health issues and about how he's sad. And when you talk about a journal in relation to mental health issues, journaling is more of a verb. It's not a thing, it's a verb. So you could pick up your computer and journal. You could pick up a notebook and journal. It's not just one thing. There could be 50 journals laying around a house and it be your journal. And then there could be, a notebook could be a journal and a notebook could be a notebook. You know what I mean? So I just found that entire line of questioning to be dishonest, but also an indication of desperation, or just trying to find a hole to walk through. Her voice is fairly grating, but at least she doesn't do all the histrionics and dramatics. I mean, yes, Shannon Smith was entertaining in a way, but I think that's why she was bringing that up. Is she's trying to get it out as evidence or something like that. But anyway,
I don't find her to be as annoying. She's probably a better lawyer for him than Shannon Smith was for Jennifer Crumbley. I do think that Shannon Smith harmed Jennifer Crumbley's case in the way that she came across. And yes, she is pushy, but in the broad scheme of things, in the larger scheme of things, if I was a defendant in a involuntary manslaughter case, I'd rather have someone who's pushy than not, right? She's basically doing her job. I just find her to be a bit annoying, in terms of her speech. It's loud and it's very fast, and the tone of her speech is really, really grating. But at least like she's efficient. She knows exactly where she's going. She talks about in her bio that she loves the adrenaline of of trial. She loves the trial adrenaline. You can kind of see that actually. In these high profile cases, you've got really skilled prosecutors on this case. So you need to be on your best game. I think Shannon Smith is the type of person that thinks that she's the top dog, and maybe what they assessed, the two of them who are probably friends, is that Jennifer had more bad facts against her, especially with that affair. And, they wanted to put the more skilled attorney on her. But honestly, I think that this Marielle Lehman is the more skilled trial attorney. Shannon Smith seems to be more of a people attorney, more of a client's attorney, more of just a backroom handling the contracts or the backroom litigation and negotiation attorney. Marielle seems to be more of the trial attorney. So they are a lot alike. And a lot of times when women speak with the same accent, Marielle's accent isn't as strong, but you can hear a little bit of that accent pushing through. And I agree, Chris Kress. They were both negligent of where their son was at mentally, both of them, to a brutal degree, especially since James didn't have a full-time job. He had all the time really in the world to be paying attention to what's going on with his kid. I had an incredibly intense job for the first, when my kids were in grade school. And by the time they reached like the junior high and high school years, I had my own business and I set my own hours, and thank God, because I was always there. I had a flexible schedule. I could go to all their games. I could break away where shit was going down. I thank God that was my schedule, that I wasn't working like the 90-hour weeks that I was working when they were in grade school, because I think it made a huge amount of difference in their lives. It definitely made a huge amount of difference in my life, in my relationship with my kids, for sure. So anyway, so I will schedule the stream for tomorrow, and it looks to me like the state is about to rest. And usually the defense, if they're not going to be putting James on the stand, and that's probably not very recommended. He doesn't look like he'd be able to handle himself very well on the stand. He seems pretty quiet. And And, after his wife tried to go on the stand, that didn't end very well for her. So I highly doubt that they'll be putting very many witnesses on the stand, if any. So this trial should be done in the next couple of days, in all honesty. And let's see, with Jennifer, it took like about a full day for them to deliberate. It so it may take a little bit longer with him because things are not quite as cut and dry in terms of there aren't as many bad facts. There aren't as many bad facts with, or at least, let's see, there aren't as many bad character facts. There are definitely bad facts with James. But the character facts in the affairs and the drugs that she was clearly taking, self-medicating on and stuff like that. You don't see as many of the character facts that get into a jury's brain before they go in to deliberate. So it may take longer for him. We'll see. But they also know that they also have in the back of their minds that Jennifer has been convicted. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens here. I'll go ahead and schedule this for tomorrow morning, and I hope to see you all there. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, and have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. I really appreciate you all. I appreciate you being respectful to each other and me and to the judicial process. I'll see you next time. Bye.